They came at the darkest hour of the night. No war horns, no shields. That was the first thing Bjorn Ironhand should have noticed. Raiders always announce themselves. These men came silently, like they had a map of his village, like they knew exactly which door to break, his door. Bjorn was 3 fjords away, trading furs. By the time he saw the orange glow on the horizon, it was already over. He ran until his lungs bled. He found his longhouse in ashes, his neighbors alive, barely touched. Only one person had disappeared from the entire village. His wife, Astrid. In the snow outside the ruins, Bjorn found the marks of a struggle. Beside them lay a knight's glove. English steel, English leather, a white stag stitched onto the cuff. The mark of Sir Aldric of Ravenmoor. But then Bjorn saw something else beneath the snow, something that made his blood turn cold, a Norse knife with a carved wolf handle. He had seen that knife 1,000 times. It belonged to his own brother. Bjorn's brother, Eric, was gone. Not dead. Gone. His bed was cold. His boat was missing from the shore. A man does not vanish on the same night his brother's wife disappears. Not unless the two things are connected. Bjorn stood in the ashes of his home and made an oath the old way. Blood on iron. I will cross the Whale Road. I will find the Knight of the White Stag, and I will bring her home, or I will not come home at all. 6 warriors volunteered. Old Sten, who had taught Bjorn to hold an axe. Young Leif, the fastest archer in the fjord. 4 more who owed Bjorn their lives. As they loaded the longship, Stein pulled him aside. Before we sail, boy, ask yourself one question. Out of every village on this coast, why yours? Out of every woman in the north, why her? Bjorn had no answer. He would find one in England, and when he did, he would discover a secret buried in Astrid's past for 20 years. 4 days on the open sea. On the 5th, the sky turned green, and the old sailors started praying. A storm on the Whale Road does not fight you, it erases you. They lost the mast, 2 shields, and half their drinking water. Leif went over the rail, and Bjorn caught his wrist with one hand and would not let go. The storm finally spat them out, half dead, onto a gray English shore. And the beach was not empty. 5 mounted scouts were waiting beneath the trees. One carried orders sealed with a white stag. Bjorn's exhausted crew hit them with 90 seconds of pure fury. They kept the man with the orders alive. Sir Aldric, Bjorn asked. Where? Ravenmoor Castle, the scout stammered. 2 days east, but Aldric didn't raid your village. He paid Norsemen to take the woman, before someone else reached her. The barons sent killers. Aldric's men got to her first. Norsemen, hired silver, men who knew one specific village and one specific door. The knife in the snow was beginning to make a horrible kind of sense. 2 days east meant 2 days through enemy land. 7 Vikings, no horses, almost no food, crossing a kingdom that wanted them dead. They moved at night. They ate stolen bread. And at a river crossing, they walked directly into an ambush. 12 soldiers against 7 starving Northmen. It should have been a massacre. It was. Just not the way the English had planned. But victory demanded blood. Old Sten took an arrow above the hip. He snapped off the shaft and laughed. The laughter did not reach his eyes. One wounded soldier tried to crawl away. Sten turned him over and studied the black raven on his armor. These are the Baron's men, he said. He has sealed every road into Ravenmoor. The soldier spat blood and grinned. Too late, he whispered. Aldric's soldiers are already in the valley. From the next hill, Bjorn saw hundreds of campfires burning below the castle. Another army was waiting outside Ravenmoor, and the one man who could command it was imprisoned inside. They reached a market town beneath the castle. Bjorn traded his arm rings for an English cloak and walked among his enemies with his hood low and his heart hammering. He heard Aldrich's name in every tavern, but not the way he expected. Sir Aldrich had been accused of treason by the Baron. His trial was in 3 days. His execution would follow at dawn. Then Bjorn turned a corner and stopped breathing. Nailed to the church door was a painted proclamation. On it was a face he had kissed 1,000 times, Astrid. But beneath the portrait it did not say escaped prisoner. It did not say Viking captive. It said, the Lady Aelswith, daughter of Ravenmoor. Returned home at last. His wife had washed ashore in the north as a frightened child 20 years ago. No memory, no family, no past. Astrid had not been chosen because she was Bjorn's wife. She had been chosen because of who she was, before she ever met him. An old priest filled in the rest for the price of Bjorn's last silver. 20 years earlier, the old lord of Ravenmoor had 2 children. When raiders attacked their ship, his son died, and little Aelswith vanished into the sea. The whole county mourned her. But the child did not drown. The current carried her north, where a Norse fisherman pulled her from the water and raised her as Astrid. When the old lord died this winter, he left Ravenmoor to Aelswith, if she still lived. Sir Aldrich swore on the old man's deathbed that he would find her. He spent his fortune searching, and he found Bjorn's wife. Then why is he imprisoned? Bjorn asked. The priest leaned closer. Because the Baron is the old lord's nephew. If Aelswith lives, he loses everything. Now the Baron would force his cousin to marry him, take her inheritance, and arrange her death after the vows. The wedding, said the priest, is in 3 days. The priest was wrong. Bjorn returned to the tavern to gather his men. Instead, he found a ghost sitting at his table. Eric, his brother, the man whose knife had been left in the snow. Give me one reason, Bjorn growled, blade at his throat. I dropped the knife, Eric said, so you would know where to look. The truth came out in broken pieces. Eric had taken Aldrich's silver to control what happened, but he never bound Astrid. He showed her the seal, a childhood drawing of Ravenmoor, and proof that the Baron's assassins were a day behind. She chose to leave. They staged the struggle to protect the village. She left without telling me, Bjorn roared. There was no time, said Eric. Any message could lead the killers back to you. She made me swear I would find you. You let me believe you betrayed us. I let you live long enough to hate me. Then Eric pushed a stolen wedding notice across the table. The Baron moved it, he said quietly. The wedding is tomorrow morning. Ravenmoor Castle, walls 40 feet high, 200 soldiers. 1 night to reach Astrid and free Aldrich. Eric knew a smuggler's route, a drainage tunnel beneath the east wall, flooded to the chest, sealed by 1 rusted gate. At midnight, 8 Northmen entered the black water. They waded through the dark, torchlight trembling on the wet stone, rats swimming past their shoulders. And Sten hid the dark stains spreading beneath his armor, and said nothing. They emerged inside the castle granary. Through a crack in the door, Bjorn finally saw her. Astrid, 50 feet away, alive. Every part of him screamed to charge. Sten's hand closed on his shoulder like iron. Then Astrid stopped beside the well. She pulled a red thread from her sleeve and tied it to the iron ring. Red thread on iron. The old signal of the fjords. Danger. Do not approach. Wait for my sign. She knew the wolf was inside Ravenmoor, and just before entering the chapel, she raised 3 fingers behind her back, 3 bells. That would be her signal. The signal never came. A servant boy opened the granary before dawn, searching for grain. He saw Bjorn. His mouth opened. Bjorn could have silenced him with one strike. He could not murder a child. One scream was enough. 200 soldiers flooded the courtyard. There was no battle to win, only time to buy. Take the others, Sten ordered Eric. Back through the water. Find Aldrich's men. And when Bjorn shouted at him to move, the old man only smiled. I taught you how to hold an axe, boy. Let me show you how to put one down. Eric and 3 warriors vanished into the tunnel. Sten took the first spear and broke it with both hands. He did not rise again. Bjorn fought until 8 soldiers buried him in chains. Then the Baron came down, wearing gold rings and a wine-stained smile, and crouched beside him. She talks in her sleep, he whispered. Always the same name. Bjorn. I hoped you would come. I need a monster for the people to fear. This morning they watch a Viking die, and then my bride will never disobey me again. They threw Bjorn into Ravenmoor's deepest cell. He was not alone. Beyond the bars sat a broken man in a torn surcoat, and on the cloth, a white stag, Sir Aldrich, the man Bjorn had crossed an ocean to kill. You took her, Bjorn said. I kept an oath to her dying father, the knight answered. My men arrived hours before the Baron's killers. Your wife agreed to come when she learned the truth. Through the night, the whole picture assembled. The Baron had used Aldrich to find the heir, seized her, framed him, and forced the wedding forward. But Aldrich had once saved the castle headsman's son from hanging, and that night the headsman came down to the cells, measured the condemned, and left carrying a message for a Norseman waiting in the town below. When the execution bell rings, Aldrich said, Your brother must raise my banner above the east gate. You trust him? The knight asked. They built the scaffold so the bride could watch from the chapel steps. The Baron wanted her broken before the vows. Bjorn was marched out in chains through a corridor of screaming faces. Astrid stood in white at the chapel door. Across the whole courtyard, their eyes met. She did not cry. She nodded. Once. Norse wives do not say goodbye. They say, Be ready. The headsman raised the axe above Bjorn's neck. Time went silent. The axe came down and shattered the chain between his wrists. Everything happened at once. The headsman threw him the axe. Eric and the survivors tore off their stolen cloaks. Leif, cut free, put an arrow through the first soldier to reach the scaffold. And above the east gate, a white stag banner unfurled. Outside the walls, Aldrich's waiting army charged. The gates opened from within. The execution bell rang a second time. 3 bells she had promised. The Baron was ringing them for her. Bjorn stood on the Baron's own stage, an axe in his hands, and watched the Baron drag his wife into the chapel, a knife against her throat. The courtyard was a storm of steel, but Bjorn heard none of it. He struck the chapel doors like a landslide. Inside, candles, silence, and the Baron at the altar with his blade at Astrid's throat. One more step, the Baron warned, and you are a widower. You hide behind a woman, Bjorn said, lowering his axe, in your own church, before your own god. The Baron smiled. He had the knife, the hostage, and an escape passage behind the altar. What he did not have was a Norse wife. Astrid spoke in the old tongue, so only Bjorn understood. Remember the fishing knife trick Eric taught me? On 3. 1. Her fingers found the iron pin in her bridal veil. 2. The Baron shouted at them to speak English. 3. She drove the pin through his hand, trapped his wrist, and dropped clear. And only when she was safe beneath the altar rail did the axe leave Bjorn's hand. The Baron of Ravenmoor never finished his scream. Behind them, the chapel bells rang for the third time, not for a wedding, for the fall of a false lord. By noon, the fighting was over. The Baron's hired soldiers surrendered the moment his body was shown from the wall. Loyalty purchased with gold ends when the gold does. In the great hall, the old priest read the Lord's will aloud. Ravenmoor, its lands, its title, all of it belonged to Lady Aelswith. The crowd knelt, Sir Aldrich knelt, and the new Lady of Ravenmoor, standing in a torn wedding dress with her husband's hand in hers, gave her first command. Sir Aldrich, you kept your oath to my father when it cost you everything. Hold Ravenmoor in my name, rule it justly. And you, my lady, the knight asked. She looked at Bjorn. Aelswith was the child the sea carried away. My name is Astrid. My home is on the other side of that sea. She chose him. Not the castle, not the gold, him. Before they left, Aldrich pressed a small silver pendant into her hand. It was your mother's, he said, a white. They sailed home with the spring tide, the longship loaded with enough silver and English oak to rebuild the village twice over. Old Sten came home beneath his shield. They buried him above the fjord, facing the whale road, so he could watch every ship return. They rebuilt the longhouse on its old foundation, larger, stronger, English oak in its beams. And on the first night beneath the new roof, Astrid took Bjorn's hand and placed it against her belly. There is something I carried across the sea with me, she said, and now I have brought it home. Bjorn Ironhand, the man who crossed the whale road, broke into a castle and fought through an army, wept like a child. On the blank face of her mother's pendant, he carved a wolf, a stag on one side, a wolf on the other, 2 worlds, 1 family. Above their door, Astrid tied the red thread. Once it meant danger. Now it meant the storm was over. They carried my wife across the sea, so I crossed it after her. Remember this, no king, no castle, and no ocean can keep you from the people you refuse to abandon.